Hello and welcome to another Sunday Quickie repair video crossover. This is the fourth in this mini series I've been doing recently. I repaired a 2600 Junior that had broken again. I had added RGB to a different Game Gear, to the one that we can see today. And what else did I do? Oh yeah, I tried to put back together my childhood PlayStation 1, which I pulled apart as a stupid and idiotic child. Today we have something also pretty far back from the archives, although not going quite as far as my childhood. This Game Gear was purchased by me in 2011 from a tiny French town called Nuvrik. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but hey, shout out to any of my French viewers out there. You can let me know if I'm saying that correctly or not. Basically, 2011, I was fresh out of high school. I was on a big family trip. We went to Bali, Dubai, and then France. I don't think you can find three places that are any more different to each other. But we were in France for the longest. We were there for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember, it was a long time ago now, but I bought so much retro gaming stuff there. And this is going back to the blog days. I don't think I even had any videos on this channel then. Regardless, I bought this at a swap meet, like I just said. I think I paid about $20 Australian, and it came with this Game Gear and like 7 games and a separate battery pack. It was a bargain. But of course, like with all Game Gears, it has capacitor issues. Now, I didn't realize that going into it. This was all a very new world to me at the time. So, this poor Game Gear was basically the test subject for me trying to learn electronic repair. So, I tried to replace the capacitors, and it went about as well as you'd expect. I ended up ripping out one of the pads for one of the capacitors, and not really knowing any better, I thought that was it. Fast forward to the Game Gear that featured in the last video where I added RGB to it. I ended up taking all the capacitors off of this one that I tried to put on it. I put it in that one, and then the contrast wheel on that like disintegrated. It like fell off. At the time, you couldn't buy replacement contrast wheels, so I ended up removing the contrast wheel from this Game Gear and sort of transplanting it over to that one. So that's all well and good. The reason this has been sitting in a parts bin for so long is because you couldn't buy those replacement contrast wheels anywhere until today. So I went onto a website called SFY, I think it was. Oh no, I've closed the tab. Oh no, here it is. SYF. So hashtag not sponsored. This is one of the few places I can find that actually sells the contrast wheels, which is why I use them. So we have the replacement capacitor kit there. We've also got some more goodies in this other little baggie. So we've got some replacement button pads, since a few of these are missing. I have most of the original parts here, but like I think that's ripped. We'll have a look at those closer in a second. But more importantly, the contrast wheels. So I think these are actually refurbished parts. I don't think they're brand new stock. Yeah, you can kind of see like they've done a pretty good job refurbishing them, but obviously there's scratches and just other little defects. But I don't mind. So I bought 3 of them just because I've never seen them for sale anymore, and so I've got a few back up there. Let's have a look at the actual Game Gear itself. It's a bit of a mess. Like I said, I was novice electronics at the time. I probably should have tried something a bit easier than straight up capacitor replacement, but I was like 18 years old. I was an idiot, so what can you do? I'm hoping to amend those mistakes today. So as we can see, it's pretty nasty. It's pretty dirty. I wasn't really cleaning as I went, which I take great importance in now. So the first thing we're going to have to do is clean this up, add new capacitors. That's the pad there that's been lifted by the looks of it. So we'll sort that out. We'll solder to a trace or whatever it is that we need to do. We'll figure that out. Obviously the contrast wheel is missing, so we'll install one of the ones I just showed you. And I think we'll just give this a bit of a clean. It's a bit mucky, so. And then over here we have the power board. I don't see any leakage. They still have the original capacitors. Same for the audio board. Ooh, we have actually got, we've got some nasty ass corrosion there. Hopefully those, what's that, a capacitor and a resistor? Hopefully those are still operational. And we might have to do a trip to the electronics store. We might have to anyway. I'm running out of solder. So this roll of solder dates back to when I worked on this. So I've had it for years and I'm running out, and I'm looking at it. I'm hoping that's going to be enough for today. So I guess we'll see. All right, just going to start with your bog standard isopropyl alcohol. Hopefully they'll get a lot of this muck off. Oh, I've just noticed, looks like there's a capacitor that's been partially desoldered. You see that there? Still looks like it's making a connection though, so we'll just make a mental note of that when we, stupid spray bottle. Hopefully we'll just make a mental note of that if things are still not working. Let's just drowse this in alcohol. This is, the spray bottle isn't as working as, as well as it should. All right, that is looking better. Better. Trying to pronounce words better on camera. I know I am likely to slur my words sometimes, so I'm trying not to do that. Anyway, yeah. I'm still undecided if I'm going to reuse the solder on the pads or not. Now that I've cleaned them up a bit, it actually doesn't look too bad. The original goal was just to completely get rid of all the solder and give it a deep clean, but you know what? I think a lot of that will be usable. Obviously, I've just added way too much in some points, so I'll definitely be removing some. But yeah, I think we can work with it. Okay, we're going to start with C48. Let's just zoom in there a bit. There we go. C48. Apologies for the croaky voice. I was sick with COVID like 2-3 weeks ago, and I'm still suffering. Anyway. So C48 is supposed to be a 10 microfarad capacitor rated at 6.3 volts. But as I'm sure many of you know, you can use a capacitor that has a higher rated voltage. So this one is rated to, what is it, 25 volts? So there's only 6.3 volts running through it, so it's going to be fine. However, it does need to be 10 microfarad exactly. That's the important bit. So I think I will clean up these pads a little bit. I keep ping-ponging around exactly what I want to do, but yeah, this just doesn't look nice. So let's just remove that with some braid. Easy does it. Okay, and as we can see, it is quite mucky underneath. So yeah, I think I will be removing all this old solder. I don't even know. Is it? I mean, it might be this solder. I don't know. I did have a super old roll of solder going back to the good old days, but who's to say? Anyway, so let's clean that up. Yeah, it looks a little bit worse for wear, which I'm not too surprised by, but I think it should still be functional. So obviously, you don't want to be adding too much solder. Less is more, all of that, you know. So we'll just add a tiny little bit. Oop, my hand's a bit shaky. There we go, I think that's all we really need to add, realistically. If you add too much solder, you might get a cold joint, and that's never a fun time. And obviously, we want the capacitor to be orientated the correct way. So, probably too zoomed in there. Ooh, yeah, way too zoomed in. So, you see that stripe there? This is all pretty layman knowledge, but that means that's the negative side of the capacitor. The one with no stripe is the positive lead, and also the longer lead. So we just need to make sure that we solder these in with the correct orientation, or it's not going to work. So let's cut this down to size. Let's see here. So negative is on that side. We probably want about, I don't know. Want it to be pretty short, so let's cut it about there. You can't see that, sorry. I'm just going to zoom this out a little bit. It's you can always zoom it in more in post, but anyway, let's do about Yeah, I reckon about there. Let's see how that goes. Okay, there we go. There's one. Now just like a dozen more of those to go. So I'll run through, I'll do all these ones off camera, and then we'll come back to camera land when we have a look at this one that's missing the pad. Okay, so I'm a few capacitors in. I've decided to have a look at this capacitor now that looks like the SMD one that's come off its its point there. Doing a test. Oops, I slipped. It's not actually making a connection. So I'm about to put in a capacitor here, so I figured I'd just do it now while it's easier to access. So we're essentially just going to heat it up and just try and push it over. I don't have a hot air station, so I don't know. I really should have done it before I did this capacitor. I guess I can just sort of try and move that out of the way a bit. A good way to do it is actually just to flood it with solder, and then it will just move around. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's try and not lose that. Okay, so the key to this is to get it onto one, and then that basically anchors it in place, and then it's easier to put in the other side. Oh, it's so small. All right. So which side is the solder side? Come on. Oh, this is really small and fiddly. It's been a long time since I've done anything SMD related. Oh my God. All right, that's one side. I think I've done it. I think it's on. No idea how well that's coming up on camera. But as per the human eyes, it looks to me like it's on. So, fingers crossed. Okay, so I've replaced all the capacitors except for the one that is missing the pad. I guess I'll just give you a bit of a look. I'm not going to say it's my best soldering work ever, but hopefully it should be functional enough. I don't know, my hands are kind of a bit shaky today. Not really sure why. Maybe I need to go eat a Mars bar or something. Who knows? Anyway, back to the missing pad. Luckily, I think it just goes to ground. Because you can see there, it's not connected to any traces. And there is just a via there. And the via appears to go to ground. Like so. So that should be a pretty easy problem to get around. So we'll start just by cleaning it up a little bit, just like I've done with all the other ones. Yeah, that other pad's in pretty decent condition, luckily. I wonder if I can just solder directly to that via. I don't know, I've never tried that before. We'll try that, that'd be the easiest way to go, I reckon. No. The answer appears to be no. But that's okay, it's ground. We can easily find something else that goes to ground, surely. Be good if I could solder directly to that, but that needs to be completely clear just because of the way the game gear goes back together. Hopefully one of these SMD components here close by go to ground. That would be useful. Oh, looks like they all go to ground. All right, so let's, what's that say? C14. Let's add a blob of solder onto the end there, and hopefully we'll have enough clearance to have the positive lead where it needs to go, and then the negative lead onto the back of that. It's so much easier doing this without the camera going. But oh well, it is what it is. Okay. And here is the guy here. So C6 is 10 microfarads, 6.3 volts. Yeah, so that's a positive lead there. So I guess we can probably just mount it like this way, maybe. And then have it something, oh, I'm not even in shot, sorry about that. Something like that, I think. Maybe. So cut that about there. And we'll cut that one pretty close about there. Oh bugger. I've cut them the wrong way around. Oh my god. Got the long one for the positive and the short one for the negative. That's, oh, you idiot, Brendan. Oh god. Alright, well we can probably still make this work actually. We'll just go like... It's going to be really bodged now. Like I said, we can't have it go over that little area there. That might just fit going in the other direction. Oh my god, just making it harder for myself, aren't I? Alright, let's put on the positive one first. I think that will be the easiest way to go. Okay. And then, looks like we'll just have enough clearance. That'll work. Yeah, cool. All right, let's check that with a multimeter. The multimeter, as they say in the States. So that one should go to ground. Yep. And then that one, that should be fine. Okay, cool. Getting somewhere, hopefully. Like I said, it's not my best work ever. And I am worried about that capacitor I put back in. I've checked continuity and it's okay, but hopefully the actual S&D capacitor itself is okay. But I haven't checked every connection, but I've checked a few here and there, and they all seem to be connecting where they need to go, so let's continue. Next step, potentiometer. Which one should we choose? This one looks the cleanest, I reckon. Let's try that one. I can go back in the bag for a rainy day. So that should just go in there like that. Oh, gotta be careful of this screen. Oh, the plastic's broken off. Hopefully that doesn't cause me an issue down the track. I was wondering why that was flopping about. Anyway, just see if we can just anchor it into place a little bit. Yeah, there's not enough solder there. Need 3 hands. There we go, that's how you do it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And we'll do the same over here. Maybe. Come on, get into place, do your job. There we go. So I think that's just for supports. So we'll add a bit more solder there just so it's nice and solid. But these are the actual connection points over here, these four. Okay, I think that's it. Nice and easy. All right, I'll check those connections with a multimeter, but I think we're ready to move on. Okay, I've actually decided to do a test now that all the main board capacitors have been replaced. The power capacitors typically don't fail, at least compared to the other ones anyway. I know the audio is not going to work because that board is just a mess, but I figured I'll pop a game in and plug it in and we'll just see what happens. Probably should have plugged this cable in before I hit record on the camera. Is that even? Yes. Okay. All right, let's see what happens. Nothing. Get no life whatsoever. The little LED isn't turning on or anything. Okay, I was expecting more than that, to be honest. Let's just try without the game in. I doubt that will make a difference. Okay, I think we might be in trouble. So that old power supply I was using, I tested it and it was outputting 18 volts. The Sega runs on 9 volts. Interestingly, the power supply is actually a 12 volt one. It actually came with the Game Gear and worked. So was it just receiving too much voltage this entire time? And then has it gone bad and it's now pumped 18 volts into the Game Gear, causing even more problems? I don't know. Not sure why I wasn't using the power supply I used with my other Game Gear, the RGB modded one. Not sure why. I also put batteries in, and it is a bit corroded and stuff in there, but I was measuring the 9 volts coming, like, outputting from those, you know, battery holders, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, yeah, a bit concerned, but I haven't replaced the capacitors on the power supply yet. So I'm going to do that right now. And I've never actually done this before, so let's see, how does it, there's 2 screws holding it down, so I guess we'll pull those out. If it sounds like I'm panicking a little bit, it's because I am. I think this whole video is about to go pear-shaped. So stupid of me not to put in the power supply I've been using, the known good power supply. I can't believe I did that. That could be potentially screwing up this entire video. All right, how does this come out? How does this come out? Oh, that's looking a little bit crusty in there. Let's see, is there any more screws? No. There's the switch. And the switch is looking a little bit crusty too. It could just be the switch that's the problem. That seems to happen quite a lot. Yeah, how does this come out? Is it? I don't want to wreck it. You know what? Just gonna Google it. All right, yeah, so you do take off this plastic thing here, and apparently that's just attached to the board. So with that removed, oh, look at that. Oh, ooh. All right, we've definitely had battery leakage in here. Wasn't me though. I don't think I've ever had batteries in this. It's always just been by the power supply. Oh my God, that is something else. It's so blue. As blue as the sky. So we'll definitely need to give that a clean up. That's most definitely from batteries. Look, it's even on like the plastic there. It's such a vibrant blue. So we'll need to get some vinegar on that, most definitely. neutralize that. And then we'll just give this a bit of a clean otherwise and replace these capacitors. So hopefully we have the right ones here. So what's that one? 800, excuse me, 820 microfarads, 6.3 volts. Yep. And we got 25 volts, 100 microfarads. I think that was the small one, wasn't it? Yep, 25 volts, 10 microfarads. That is quite a bit smaller. And what do we got there? That one is a, where is it? 35 volts, 22 microfarads, which is that one. Cool. So what's this one for? Did I forget one in the main board? Is that the reason it's not turning on? Wouldn't that be a twist? Might have to go find some photos online and have a look. I can't see anywhere that would... Because, you know, obviously my soldering was so bad back then. Not to say it's fantastic now, but it's certainly better. And you could definitely see where the capacitors need to go. Yeah. I'll give that a more in-depth look off camera. But for now, let's focus our attention back to this power supply board. Okay, so I've got some white vinegar here. Easily the best way to get rid of this corrosion. Ugh, got it on my finger. So we're just going to use a Q-tip here. Nothing too over the top, just to look at that. That is such a vibrant blue. And let's just get all this junk off. All right, that's looking much better. I'm just going to clean out the switch. It's a good way is just to spray some contact cleaner or isopropyl alcohol in there and just turn it back and forth. And you can check with a multimeter just to make sure that it is opening and closing the circuit. There was a bit of gunk in there, so it's possible it was just the power switch that's the problem, but I think we definitely want to replace these capacitors anyway. And to do that, I'm going to use my desoldering pump. Okay, let's start with this big guy first. I think that would be the easiest one to do on camera. So I've shown my method of desoldering through-hole components a couple of times here, but what you want to do first is reflow the solder of those 2 points and just add a bunch of new solder. This makes it easier to then desolder as opposed to just going, you know, straight in raw for solder that's, you know, 30 odd years old. And I think this flux pen might be out. That doesn't look very healthy, does it? I should have another one over here. Maybe, hopefully. This is completely dry. It's completely empty. It's like it's evaporated or something. Okay, well, I guess no flux for me today. I'll have to go buy some more. So I'm out of flux, running out of solder. Dearie me. There we go. Who needs flux anyway, hey? So you want to add quite a bit. Just so there's a decent amount for the solder sucker to grab onto. Not solder sucker, desoldering pump. Cool, so it's not working. As soon as I turn on the camera, things stop working. That's the way it always works. Bloody hell. Come on. Oh, that solder stinks bad. All right, that's actually pretty good. Let's see if we can pry it loose. Yeah, it's wobbling. Got it. I don't think I even got it on camera either. Ugh. Alright, that put up far more of a fight than I thought it would. What do you reckon? Doesn't look too hot, does it? Although there's no damage on the board. Oh, that was annoying. See, it takes about 3 seconds with an operating desoldering pump. Anyway, let's chuck in the new guy. That looks much newer and cleaner, pretty fresh. Should be much easier to solder in than it was to desolder the other one. The hole's not big enough for the lead to fit through. Oh my god. So I finally got the legs through. How ridiculous is that? Like I said, only run into these issues when the camera's running. I'll do these other two without the camera turned on, and I can guarantee you that they'll be done with no issues whatsoever. Or maybe they will, but you'd never know about it. There we go. As easy as that. And then you just cut off the excess. Try to avoid them flying across the room at maximum warp. Okay, we're finally done. We have the 3 new capacitors in there. My desoldering pump, sorry, I should say, is completely blocked, which is why it wasn't working before. And I can't quite figure out how to unblock it. So that's going to be a project for another day. So I did these 3 by hand, and while it did go better than the first one, as predicted, it was still a major pain in the ass. Just you get used to something like a desoldering pump, and then having to go back and trying to do it by hand is just awful. Anyway, where did I put the rest of the game gear? It's over here. All right, now with the new caps in, let's plug it back in and see if we have any signs of life. And if we don't, I don't really know what to do. We're still getting absolutely no signs of life whatsoever. Oh dear. Okay, so it's the very next day. I've made a little bit of progress. The game gear now turns on. And as we can see, I don't know how well that's coming off on camera, probably not very well, but the contrast wheel does indeed work. However, it's not booting the game I put in there. And as you can see, I'm currently running off batteries. So when I plug in the power adapter, which I used with the other Game Gear, and it should work because it is the same model, the 2110-50, it like turns on and then immediately turns itself off. So potentially I could mean a number of things. My first port of call is to check the socket for the power adapter and see if maybe the soldering joints on it are cracked or something like that. Hopefully it's something simple. But basically, the fact that it turns on but doesn't play the game but shows a black screen is exactly what it does when there's no game installed. So that says to me that it's not reading the game. So I will also be focusing my interest on the cartridge slot. I guess I should add what I did to make it work. So nothing exciting. I just cleaned the power board with the white vinegar I was using, and I wish I had it on camera. As soon as I put the white vinegar on it, it just started bubbling immediately, which says to me that there was corrosion on the board. Maybe it just wasn't so visible to the human eye, but it was definitely there. It was reacting with something. So I think I'll also do that just with the area on the main board that's close to the power board. Obviously the battery fluid got in and did cause some sort of havoc. But yeah, otherwise we'll be focusing on the cartridge slot. Okay, so the solder pads on the power connector don't look too bad. That's these two, but I will reflow them regardless. But I noticed, looking into the power jack, where's my torch? There's actually corrosion inside of there. So I'm going to blast that with some vinegar, and I figured I may as well just reflow these connections anyway, because why not? Okay, it's the very next day again, and I know I look the same. I'm wearing my pajamas. Anyway, we have hit a milestone. I gave everything a good cleaning with the vinegar and then a once over with the isopropyl alcohol, like I said I would. And after giving it substantial time to dry, we have the Sega logo. Let me just turn off these overhead lights because the Sega screen isn't the most brightest thing at the best of times. Look at that, speeding out run. And yeah, so contrast wheel is working, more or less. More than it was when there was no contrast wheel. So that's that. Now we just need to deal with the audio board. We get audio working, we put everything back together, and hopefully we can play a game. Sorry, the other thing I meant to test was if the power adapter worked. So I should just automatically switch off the batteries when a power plug is inserted. So where have my tweezers gone? Let's see what happens. Okay, I guess we should probably just take out the batteries and just make sure that it's not actually running off those instead. Removing one should be enough. There we go, working off the power adapter. I can put all these batteries away. It makes it so heavy with all the batteries in and adds all of, you know, I don't know, what, 2 hours of gameplay? Something ridiculous like that. Okay, so here's a closer look at the audio board, which controls the circuit directly to the inbuilt speaker, plus the headphone jack. That, of course, is the volume knob. So we're replacing these 5 capacitors with these guys. So the big ones are all the same. Those 2 small ones are all the same. So pretty straightforward. It's a bit strenuous on the main board because all the values are so different. I never did figure out what this other capacitor was for. That's just a freebie, I guess. So obviously these are a lot more involved when it comes to desoldering. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it yet. As you can see, there is quite a bit of corrosion. I think I'm just gonna, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'll try and desolder each side. I'll just see what happens. I'll add a bunch of solder to get it flowing again, and then I'll try and desolder it with the braid, and we'll just see what happens. All right, I'm gonna start with this one first. It has the best access. It's going to be pretty fiddly to do, so like with the others, I'll probably be just doing them off camera. So let's just add in a bit of solder there and sort of see what happens. Okay, the solder is sticking to the side of the capacitor instead, so that's a good sign. Yeah, it's just melting the plastic. Hopefully the pad isn't gone, because that's just, oh, it smells bad. Ugh, burning plastic on the side of a capacitor. Not what I want to smell after a full day of work, but, you know, I do this for you guys. Yeah, look at that. It's just like melted the side of the capacitor. I wonder if they're so rickety wrecked I can sort of just pry them up. I am a bit worried about doing that because I don't want to rip the traces up at the same time. Let's just try the other side. Let's see if any solder takes to that. No. Oh man, that stinks. You know what? I think that's actually the electrolytic fluid that's stinking up as it gets heated up to a boiling point of, well, way more than a boiling point, 380 degrees. Although, what's the boiling point of electrolytic fluid? Who cares? I don't know. I'm just gonna just yeet this. Hey, I'm just gonna. Is that hot? Can I just? Oh, that was very stupid. That just it just ripped the traces right up. Why the f did I do that? Okay. Yeah, that was just moronic. Don't do that. Bloody hell. Look at that. It's just ripped them clean up. They're like stuck to the bottom of the capacitor. I don't know if you can see that either. Oh my god. All right. You know, this board's pretty far gone. Like, I'm just considering, like, just taking the capacitors off somehow so it doesn't. No, there's got to be a better way. I can't give up this easily. Yeah, I reckon, unless that is just the bottom of the capacitor that's there and it hasn't actually ripped up the pad, although I doubt it. Let's see what happens if I try to add some solder now. Oh, no, it's holding. On that side at least. Hold on. Let's clean this up a little bit before we add some more solder. Maybe that was just the bottom of the capacitor leg. Maybe it was still on. I don't know. It definitely looks like it's ripped up, but only in the middle? Like the pad's still surviving on the outside? I guess we could check it with a multimeter. Hey! Alright. Maybe I'm not so boned after all. Look at that. So, let's get Mr. Multimeter out. That's for my American audience. Love you guys. So it looks like that goes to that other SMD capacitor there. Oh, it's really slippery because of all that isopropyl alcohol. There we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, how about on the other side? That's going to the leg of that IC. I'm so excited I can't even hold it properly. That is just dumb luck. That's so dumb. But how do I get them off otherwise? Like, you just gotta... Am I gonna be that lucky every other time? I doubt it. And then I'm gonna have to solder the bloody legs. All right, well, let's just slow down for a second. Let's reapply the new capacitor. Reapply the new capacitor. I said it like it's a type of cream. Reapply a capacitor once every 20 years to ensure the longevity of your Game Gear. Oh, I see. It's like... So, new ones on the left, old ones on the right. It kind of does look like it just picked up the middle of the pad though. Like, that is such a no-no. So negative is on, I guess the line there lines up with the line on the capacitor. Yes. Doesn't say which sides. Oh yeah, no, I can see the positive symbol now. All right, this is really, really tiny. Can we get it on? I'm gonna do this side first because it's gonna be easier. I don't know a way of doing this without my hand. My big, fingers getting in the way. I'll try my best. I'm not promising nothing. Okay, that's one side. And, oh, this is so awkward. It's almost as if this is not really that user serviceable. Ah, damn it. Yeah, this is going to be painful. I might add more solder, that might help. Is that even on? I mean, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious me. Alright, it's a bit wonky, but it seems to be on there solidly. Solidly. Oh man, this is like no easy way to test it either. Man, this is going to be tricky. Alright, so I've been watching some YouTube videos on how to remove this. And I've got a beer now as well, so just excuse me while I crack that open. It's 5:31 somewhere in the world, and as of filming, that is Perth, Western Australia. Today I have a Indian Pale Ale by a local brewery called Other Side, in case you're wondering. Delicious. So I found this video, for like 2 minutes, and the guy was literally just twisting them around until the actual capacitor bit popped off and left the plastic on the bottom. And I think just from that point onwards, you can more easily desolder it or just give up and pop it off. I don't know. Can I do that 4 more times without ripping the pads off? That's the question. In my experience, no. Well, look how easy that's moving. Oh my. Okay, let's, oh, all right, that didn't put up much of a fight. Look at that, that's gross. Now we've just got this, ugh, I didn't even mean to do that. Bloody hell. Looks like I'll be ripping these up whether I want to or not. That looks so crusty. That is disgusting. But do we still have continuity with the multimeter? That's how you're supposed to say it. Is it ever going to work for all that muck? Yep. All right, cool. And where does the other one go? I can't even tell. Maybe that just goes to ground. I don't know. I'll figure that out. I'm just going to run through and pop these off and clean it, and I think we'll just go from there. So it's only a matter of minutes after I shot that last portion. They all came off much easier than I thought. Look how disgusting they are. That is just, like, they've all leaked. I think apart from, well, maybe that one hasn't. The 3 big ones, at the very least, have all leaked. And look at this board. I haven't cleaned it yet. I have, however, checked all the traces, all the pads, and they're still there, so like the capacitors are in such a bad state that they just lifted off the board. So I thought it might be satisfying to watch you. I thought you might find it satisfying to watch me clear all this gunk off. Maybe. I'll put a little bit of vinegar on it. Not a lot. It takes so long to evaporate. But there's just that extra little bit of gunk that the isopropyl alcohol isn't lifting off. Well, it certainly smells like fish and chips now. And that's looking a lot better. Give it another courtesy spray with the old isopropyl alcohol. My partner in crime. Yeah, so I was going easy on the vinegar, but I wanted this board to look good. So I know I'll just have to wait for it to dry, but that's okay. The Game Gear appears to be working otherwise, so I think it's worth it. So I'm going to give that a chance to dry out a bit, and then I'm going to try and reapply these capacitors, of which I'm going to do off camera because it's quite fiddly. So I'll see you then. Okay, and we're done. And not a moment too soon. Look how much solder I have left. Hopefully I shouldn't have to do any more soldering because basically out. Anyway, here's this. Not the most pretty thing in the world. These are very challenging to solder on. Obviously I would assume they're not soldered on by hand in the factory all those years ago. It's just, how are you supposed to solder them in flat? But I have checked it with a multimeter. The connections are going where they're supposed to, so here's hoping. We're gonna plug it back into the Game Gear and see if we get sound. Okay, so I've put Woody Pop in there instead because that plays music in the menu immediately while Outrun doesn't. And I've turned the lights off again just so we can see the screen. You can see that. Oh, just turn it, oh, it's a bit loose. There we go, got the Sega logo there. Not sure if you can see. Oh, yeah. How loud that is. Can't quite reach the volume knob. Yeah. So it's not sticking out there properly because I haven't properly reassembled it, but the volume knob does indeed work. And I guess we should find out if the headphones work. Oh, I just froze. I just reset the game. So this power jack is pretty dodgy. If you move it a little bit, it like resets it. Or it doesn't play again at all. I think I did hear the sounds come through the headphones there for a slight second. I'm going to place that down ever so gently. Got sound coming out of the right but not the left. Is it mono? I don't actually know. I will tell you this, the headphone jack definitely did cop the corrosion quite a bit, so I mean, I'm not going to use the headphone jack. I'm not even realistically going to use this Game Gear at all. I just wanted to get it working. So I might just give that a bit of a flush out with vinegar later on and just leave that to dry overnight and stuff. If it's done by the time the video uploads, I'll tell you right now if it's working in both channels. Or I'll tell you if it is only mono. Anyway, I'm going to put this all back together. So it's going to be hard to see because I don't have the lights on, but I've got all this stuff from the Game Gear. But I do have some new replacement parts as well. So I sort of touched on this earlier. This D-pad's looking a little bit worse for wear. It's actually, it's not looking too bad now that I look at it. I've bought a replacement D-pad nonetheless. I feel like I did have some reason for buying a new D-pad pad thing. I also bought two new smaller ones because I believe they were missing. No, there they are right there. Huh. I thought I was missing those. Anyway, they didn't cost me much. Maybe it will, I mean, I bought this ages ago, like a couple of months ago now, so maybe it will all make sense as I'm putting it together. I don't know, but I'll put it back together and then I'll report back, hopefully for the final time. Okay, we're done. Mostly. Two things. Putting this back together, the speaker has stopped working. The headphone jack still works, so the sound circuit evidently is still working, but for some reason, I've just stopped getting sound altogether. The cable running from the speaker to the sound circuit is checking out. I've rechecked all the capacitors. They're still going where they need to go. So logically, that means there's something wrong with the speaker, I think, in the little bit of troubleshooting I've done. So I don't have a replacement one of those on hand. And I'm also not sure how I blew it out just putting the case back together. So regardless, it was working. I mean, this is just the Game Gear that won't give up. It just wants to be broken. So just going to leave that for today. Not necessarily concerned. The other thing is the power jack is very obviously dodgy. You need to put the power cable in at a very certain angle. If you push it in too far, it just doesn't turn on at all, like you can see. But if we like pull it out a bit and then like angle it a little bit, like it'll start working. So, but the good news is see, it's just turned itself off, turned itself back on again with the cable moving around. But I'll just turn these lights off. and I'll show you that it is indeed working. So there's the buttons there. Yeah, as for the button pads, I was just missing one. So I guess I must have just bought a set of them, maybe. I guess I could look that up, but I didn't. Doesn't matter. I have spares now, so I was missing one. So that's the reason I bought those. But if we just head into the game here, and we can see that it's playing. So obviously very hard to angle this and show it on the screen at the same time. So I'm not sure how well you can see that, and I'm not playing through a tiny 2-inch screen off my camera, but this has been sitting broken since the day I bought it, since I bought it from that swap meet in France in 2011. Even though I did try and fix it back then, it's more or less sat in pieces in a box for over a decade. So, like I said, these are all the small projects I've just been meaning to get to, which is why I'm doing it in this Sunday quickie, type of video. But I'm counting this as a win. And it was completely working up until something happened to the speaker that, you know what? Who cares? I would imagine that this video has become quite long, so I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it to the end, thumbs up to you. And I'll see you in the next video.